on state institutions or strong leadership.
Уважаемые граждане России,
Ich schwöre,
Never again will Ireland's stability be threatened by speculation and greed.
Our economy is on track. We're on our way.
So should governments stop interfering in the economy?
Every time you increase government intervention in the economy, you are really leaving yourself vulnerable.
It is time for both monetary and fiscal authorities to begin to step back.
But is that the right way? After all, as we've seen in Greece and other countries in Europe, democracy does not always guarantee good results. So does strong political leadership matter more?
Professionals of the highest class should work in the highest levels of government. The economy depends on their quality of work.
It's not about culture, it's not about geography, but it's about man-made institutions. Those are the rules and regulations that determine the incentives that are central for prosperity versus poverty.
Without them, you've got biased enforcement.
But do you get healthy competitiveness? According to the World Economic Forum, the quality of institutions is the #1 pillar when measuring global competitiveness. In its most recent report, Switzerland is at the top, with Russia near the middle at 64th place.
The Russian governmental institutions are weak, they're too centralized.
Russia made the most progress among the biggest emerging economies in making it easier to do business. But corruption, rule of law and bureaucracy still remain a concern to investors. What is more important for emerging economies, robust institutions or strong leadership?
The more important factor right now is strong and effective leadership that can push the reform process.
It's the ability of leaders to use institutions and build institutions that really matters for the prosperity of a nation.
So what is the ultimate recipe for economic growth in the post-crisis world? Let the discussion begin.
And now I'll give the floor to Mr. Adizes, our first speaker. I would like to ask you to share your personal opinion. The question is how and when the leaders emerge, and what, to your mind, is this strong leadership?
Mr. Graf? How do you do that? Mr. Graf, members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me. Mr. Graf has given me an incredible challenge in 7 to 10 minutes to summarize 40 years of my lifetime and 17 books that I've written. It's not a simple job, but let me try. Professor North says that inclusive institutions are correlated with economic growth. And there's been no correlation, does not say anything about causality. So we have to ask ourselves why institutions are so important for economic growth. And I want to explain that, and then we'll talk about leadership. I found out, after many years of research and working with companies and testing it in the field, with companies in some countries, that success, and I'm not necessarily saying economic growth, because not necessarily growth is always a success. Some growth is cancerous. So we want to be sure we're talking about development and not necessarily growth. Success. I found out success is a function of one factor. That one factor is impacted by 4 factors, which are impacted by 18. At the bottom, million factors. And I devoted my life to find out what this pyramid looks like. Let me tell you what the top is, because we only have 7 minutes. Success is a ratio between external integration divided by internal disintegration. What is external integration? There are so many consulting firms, as I was walking in here, that deal with that. Strategic planning. How do we penetrate the market? How do we position in the market? How do we compete? How do we get more market share? And in the country it is how much to get better trade, but balance. It's external integration. In personal life it's called career planning. How do I get outside there? Internal disintegration is all the internal waste of energy on politics, backstabbing, disagreements, rumors, waste of energy, but usually makes you hate your job, hate your country, hate everything, hate your marriage. Why does this formula predict success? Because we know from physics that energy is fixed. Even the most energetic person is only 24 hours a day. A country also has fixed energy. And I'm not talking about oil. And we know, what I found out, is that that fixed energy first goes for internal disintegration, and only the surplus, if any left, goes for external integration. If you have a problem in your marriage in the morning, you come to work on your knees by noontime. If you have a fight with your wife, with your children, with your father, with your family, you just have no energy. Why is Switzerland successful? What does Switzerland has? Snow and cuckoo clocks. What do they have? Nothing. What does South Africa have? Oh my God. Where is South Africa on the map? Because of internal disintegration, that's why. I've seen many companies in my career, they have the technology, they have money, they have market, failing. Why? The parties are fighting, the team does not work together. It's called internal disintegration. And what causes internal disintegration? I'm going to use some words which are going to feel they're too simple. But I spend lifetime trying to understand what they mean, so please give me a chance to explain. Internal integration is a function of a culture of mutual trust and respect. When is a marriage over? Not when you fight. Every marriage has a fight. When there is no more trust and no more respect. And what is trust? What does trust really mean? Do we share interests? Can I turn my back to you? Do you take my interest in account when you make a decision? Or is it a win-win? Which for some people, win-win means they win twice, you get nothing. That is not what we are talking about. And what is respect? Big word. Big word. It is not whether you smile and you... Guys, this is... Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, says respect is when you recognize the sovereignty, which means the undeniable right of the other person to think differently. I respect you have the right to think differently. You don't have to think like me. I can disagree with you. When a culture has mutual trust and respect, Japan, what does Japan have? Culture. What does Switzerland have? Switzerland should have been Yugoslavia. Can you imagine a worse disaster than French, Germans, and Italians together? Why Yugoslavia fell apart? Everybody knows the word Balkanization. It's a Balkan. So why institutions are important? Now look what kind of institutions. Rule of law, institutionalized systems for conflict resolution, transparency. What is behind it? Trust, respect for differences. When we don't have that, the energy is wasted. The energy is because systems are like a machine. If you're a mechanical engineer, you learn to design a machine with maximum pressure and minimum friction. When there is a lot of friction, the machine breaks down. Many countries break down. United States is breaking down. It stopped. They could not even approve a budget. America is going down because it's getting disintegrated. The rich people are getting richer and richer and richer. The people are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. That's called disintegration. So what kind of institutions we need? Institutions that create and nurture and maintain respect and trust in the country. Thus, what kind of a leader do we need? Not strong. I think it's a bogus question. The guy in Ukraine is very strong. Is he doing good for the country? I leave it for you to decide. Ceausescu was strong. It's not strong. It's a leader that creates institutions that bring trust and respect in the country. You will not invest in a country you don't trust, will you? Trust. Trust. So that's kind of the leaders that we need. So the question here is not leadership or institutions. We need both. But we need leaders that by personal example bring a culture where people start trusting the leader. Do we trust the leadership? Do we respect the leadership? Because it's like with parents. When do the children become dysfunctional? When the parents cannot be trusted. They cannot be respected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Adizes.